They woke the world to their magic, and their wizardry transcends time. Many have passed on, but their heroics live forever. On football's greatest stage, the gods of the game have earned their encore. Pelé, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Maradona. Revered today by generations unborn when they weaved their spell. In the streets of South America, up laneways throughout Europe, on the dirt roads of any African village, the deeds of the past inspire the players of tomorrow. It's the cup of hope, the cup of dreams. It's football's biggest prize on the greatest stage of all. There cannot be many players who have made a more dramatic arrival on the international stage than Zinedine Zidane in 1994. But one thing is certain, no one has made a more dramatic departure from international football than the French playmaker 12 years later at the 2006 World Cup in Germany. Zidane's headbutt on Marco Materazzi from Italy in the 110th minute of the final stands as the single most sensational moment in all World Cup deciders. It later transpired that Materazzi had insulted Zidane's sister. So even though Zidane's expulsion from the game meant he was unable to take a penalty kick in the ensuing penalty shootout, and even though France would lose to Italy, Zidane was hailed a hero by none other than French President Jacques Chirac.
You are a brilliant football player, a genius of football. You are a passionate man, a man of conviction. And that is why France admires you and loves you.
It had always been that way. Zidane made his international debut for France little more than a month after the 1994 World Cup. A tournament for which France failed to qualify despite having a star-studded lineup including Eric Cantona and David Ginola. In a friendly against the Czech Republic in Bordeaux on August 17, 1994, the home side's woes continued, 2-0 down after 45 minutes. Coach Aimé Jacquet summoned 22-year-old Zidane from the bench 1 minute later to replace Corentin Martin, and he scored twice in the second half to level the match 2-2. A star was born, and for all his ups and downs, and one incredible controversy, that star would never dim. The story of Zinedine Zidane, Zizou, continues after the break. Two goals for Zinedine Zidane at his national debut was a welcome sign for France, for which good news had been somewhat scarce after its failure to qualify for the 1994 World Cup. And while he was already starring for Bordeaux in Ligue 1, the extra attention didn't do his market value any harm either. In 1996, Zidane crossed to Juventus in Serie A, having won the Ligue 1 Player of the Year in his final season with Bordeaux. Eric Cantona's self-implosion and banishment from the French team in 1995 had hastened Zidane's development, and he was talisman for Juventus, leading them to successive league titles, and for a young France team regenerating under the leadership of coach Aimé Jacquet. But every now and then, Zidane's temper would get the best of him. A legacy of his days growing up in one of the toughest parts of Marseille, the son of Algerian immigrants. In the second match of the 1998 World Cup, with France dominating Saudi Arabia, Zidane got himself thrown out of the game for stomping on Saudi captain Fayoud Amin. It was the first time a Frenchman had been red-carded at a World Cup. It cost him 2 matches and was totally unnecessary. But in the final, he was the difference. 2 first-half goals, both from corner kicks, both headed into the net to demoralise Brazil. Emmanuel Petit added a 3rd goal in the 93rd minute, but the final was Zidane's. The irony that he had delivered a World Cup to France with his head would not become apparent until 8 years later, when he lost one with his head. But back then, there was nothing but hero worship. He was named FIFA 1998 World Player of the Year and also won the Ballon d'Or.
France against Brazil in '98 is a minor memory for me. No, I'm only joking. Obviously, it's one of the greatest memories of my life as a soccer player and in general. It was fantastic to win a World Cup in France with the French team against the great Brazil. It is obviously fantastic.
2 years later, more glory. He led France to the Euro 2000 title, providing a touch of magic with a bending free kick in the quarter-final, scoring the golden goal in the 117th minute of the semi-final, and winning the Player of the Tournament and his second Player of the Year trophy. It was only a matter of time before Real Madrid came calling, and in 2001 they did in the biggest way. A world record transfer of 150 billion lira, or 77.5 million euros, smashed the record Real had set a year earlier for Luis Figo. The record would last 8 years. Apart from the pre-war fledgling years, no world record transfer fee has lasted longer. In his first year at the club, Zidane conjured what is considered the greatest goal in Champions League history in the win over Bayer Leverkusen. The following year, he won his 3rd Player of the Year, prompting the Real Madrid legend Alfredo Di Stefano to declare, "He plays as if he has silk gloves on each foot." But at international level, France had once again slipped back into the pack. For French fans, the 2002 World Cup was a far cry from 4 years earlier. Zidane was injured and played just 1 match as they were bounced out at the group stage. And when they were eliminated from Euro 2004, he announced his retirement from international football. It was only under the urging of new coach Raymond Domenech that he retracted that decision 12 months later to help a new generation of French players to get to Germany 2006. To say he had an eventful tournament would be somewhat understating it. Yellow cards in the first 2 matches meant he missed France's final group game. Against Spain, a goal and a 3rd yellow card. An assist for the only goal and the Man of the Match award in the quarter-final. The only goal in the semi-final. In the final, France's only goal. And that red card. The goal came after just 7 minutes from a Marco Materazzi penalty. Materazzi equalised for Italy at the 19th minute, and with no more scoring, the final went to extra time. The exchange between the 2 goal scorers came in the 110th minute. The Italian defender looking to get a reaction from Zidane with some remarks about his sister. Zidane's temper again letting him down. Expelled from the game, France's #1 penalty shooter could not take part in the penalty shootout. Regretful for the message his actions sent, Zidane has nevertheless refused to apologise to Materazzi, although they did meet 4 years later and shook hands. For many players, The headbutt would have ruined their reputation, but not for Zidane. The French squad returned to Paris more a celebration of his career than a welcome back for the team.
Cher Zinedine Zidane,
Dear Zinedine Zidane, what I want to express at maybe the most intense and difficult moments of your career is the admiration and fondness of the entire nation. And as well, the respect and affection.
A few weeks later, Zidane appeared at a FIFA hearing into the incident, where even the penalty handed down was tempered by admiration.
Zinedine Zidane has been suspended for 3 matches and fined with 7,500 Swiss francs. However, that's the big important information, the committee has taken note that Zinedine Zidane has ended his international career and has taken note of Zinedine Zidane's gesture to do 3 days of community service within the FIFA humanitarian activities.
Materazzi's role as provocateur was also punished.
Due to the repeated provocations, Italy's Marco Materazzi will be suspended for 2 matches with his national team, and he has been fined with 5,000 Swiss francs.
In retirement, Zidane was involved in numerous humanitarian and charitable projects. And the inevitable turn to coaching has been a triumph with Champions League success at Real Madrid, where even the giant ego of Cristiano Ronaldo was in his thrall. There's just one act of the Zinedine Zidane drama to be played out. Having won a World Cup with his headers, lost a World Cup with his headbutt. How fitting would it be for him to appear in a third final just using his head? Zidane as coach of France in a World Cup final. Now, wouldn't that be something on football's greatest stage? After the break, the decorated career of the only man to play in 3 successive World Cup finals, Brazil's Cafu. From the moment Brazilian champion Cafu entered this world, there was a sense of purpose to be fulfilled on football's greatest stage. Born in Sao Paulo on the same day, June 7, 1970, that Pelé and Jairzinho-led Brazil beat reigning champions England in a classic group match en route to one of the nation's most famous World Cup victories. Cafu's destiny seemed almost preordained. After 1970, though, Brazil endured a frustrating World Cup drought, failing to appear in a final for 24 years. But as one dynasty fell, another rose. Boys like Cafu grew into men, forming an integral part of Brazil's rebirth on the world stage. He had immediate success at Sao Paulo, but it was more than a decade in Italy's Serie A with Roma and AC Milan, where he established himself as one of the world's great centre-backs, winning Serie A titles with both and a Champions League with Milan. After debuting for Brazil in 1990, he was a substitute in the 1994 World Cup, coming on in the 21st minute of the final against Italy after teammate Jorginho was forced off with an injury. His aggressive thirst for the contest was apparent, earning a yellow card in the 87th minute. Brazil would go on to claim the World Cup on penalties, the first final ever to be decided by spot kicks, and the Seleção's first triumph on football's greatest stage since 1970, the year Cafu was born. he would become a mainstay in Brazil's lineup. And while he didn't have the likes of Pelé, Jairzinho or Carlos Alberto, Cafu was in the midst of a new champion era. Settled in his defensive role, with Roberto Carlos on the left, and with the potent presence of Ronaldo and Rivaldo, Brazil was building yet again, and in 1998 they made the World Cup final again, firm favourites against France. But with Ronaldo ill and well below his best, Brazil was a shock loser, 3-0. At the 2002 World Cup, hosted by South Korea and Japan, Cafu enhanced his legacy, this time as captain, etching his name as one of the game's greats. Against Germany, he became the only player to take the field in 3 World Cup finals. And when Brazil emerged 2-0 victors, Cafu became the first and still the only player to win 2 World Cup finals 8 years apart. Ronaldo scored 2 goals to avenge the '98 heartbreak, and Cafu had his 2nd World Cup crown. He had fulfilled his purpose.
You play for your country, your nation, while millions are watching. Millions of people are watching what you do in a World Cup. For those who have never been to a FIFA World Cup, those who are going for the first time, for those who have already been there and could not become champions, I can say that becoming a world champion is the best thing on the planet. There is no greater thrill than to raise the trophy and say, I am a world champion, and this cup says it all.
Cafu graced football's greatest stage for a 4th and final time in 2006. Brazil made the last 8, but was eliminated by France in the quarter-finals. And he added another record, a 6th World Cup red or yellow card, making him the equal most booked player in World Cups, alongside France's Zinedine Zidane. But Cafu won't be remembered for that. He holds the record for the most caps for Brazil's national team. He won 2 World Cups, one as captain, played in 3 finals, and was an all-star in 2002. He was a boy born to don the Seleção strip, and with passion and vigour, he helped his nation return to relevance on football's greatest stage. For former Manchester United and Northern Ireland goalkeeper Harry Gregg, football was brought into sharp perspective on February 6, 1958. On board British European Airways Flight 609 with his Manchester United teammates after a European Cup clash in Belgrade, the plane stopped to refuel in Munich. But with snow covering the runway, it failed on its 3rd attempt to take off and crashed, killing 23 people, including 8 of Gregg's teammates.
Munich Airport, and wreckage that tells the story of the dreadful disaster. The house, about 300 yards beyond the end of the runway, struck by the doomed aircraft.
At 25 years old, Gregg was heroic in the immediate aftermath, pulling teammates and injured passengers from the rubble, including a pregnant woman and her young daughter. Those telling moments were recounted vividly by Peter Howard, a photographer who survived the ordeal.
I crawled through, got out all right, and immediately started to run. And having run, I suppose, 30 or 40 yards, I heard Harry Gregg, the goalkeeper, shouting. It was the first sounds I'd really heard, apart from the bumping and the crashing of the aeroplane. I turned round and Harry was there, waving his arms, shouting, "Come on, lads, let's help," you see. I didn't quite know whether to go back or not because I could see smoke from the plane, and I knew it was dangerous and probably dangerous to Harry.
Gregg risked his life for others that night, earning the title, the Hero of Munich. Bravery is one thing, but what Harry did was about more than bravery. It was about goodness, said teammate George Best. For the good of the football world, matches continued, but the tragic event was never to be forgotten.
Football grounds throughout the country flew flags at half-mast, and football fans wore tokens of mourning. The Saturday matches were played, and that's how those who died would have wished. Mourning is nationwide, indeed worldwide, for men who once delighted the crowds.
The Red Devils returned, almost unrecognisable, but a club possessed.
Club determined to rise again from disaster.
Gregg played his first game back just 13 days after the crash. For him, a return to football was cathartic. I always wanted to be on the football pitch, whether having a good game or bad game. The glory part afterwards, honestly, I never needed it. I never wanted it, he said. After all he had been through, football's greatest stage in 1958 provided the setting for a miracle World Cup appearance, Northern Ireland's first ever. For Gregg, it was a miracle he was alive. The Ulstermen progressed past the group stages, beating Czechoslovakia in a playoff, but were eliminated 4-0 by France in the quarter-finals. Still Northern Ireland's best showing in a World Cup. Gregg earned a place in the All-Star team and was named the tournament's best keeper, a sentimental tribute in his only ever World Cup appearance. Overall, he played 25 games for the national side and became the world's most expensive keeper when he transferred to Manchester United in 1957 for £23,000. Despite being one of their best ever keepers, he never won a trophy. But his contribution to the world game was profound. For Northern Ireland, the hero of their best ever World Cup showing. For Manchester United, the hero who risked his life for his team. For the game itself, gripped by the horror of the Munich tragedy, he was an inspiration. Time for our trivia now. And do you know why South Korean striker Ahn Jung-hwan was dumped by his European club side in 2002? The answer up next, when we also look at Ahn's national team South Korea and their run as host nation at the 2002 World Cup. Welcome back. South Korea's Ahn Jung-hwan was sacked by Italian club Perugia midway through the 2002 World Cup because he scored the goal in the round of 16, which put Italy out of the tournament. Ahn headed a golden goal in extra time, and the next day Perugia owner Luciano Gauci cancelled his contract, saying he had no intention of paying a salary to someone who has ruined Italian football. South Korea's run to the semi-finals of the 2002 World Cup is one of the great fairy tale stories on football's greatest stage. And playing the role of Prince Charming was Dutch coach Guus Hiddink. Hiddink's brand of team-first humility has made him popular wherever he has coached, tasting success at club and national level with Netherlands, in 2 stints at Chelsea in England, and with national teams in Australia and Russia. But no nation has revered him more than the co-host of the 2002 tournament. Until its appointment to host the World Cup in partnership with Japan, South Korea had never won a single World Cup match. But after some initial doubts, Hiddink struck a chord with South Korean officials and politicians, and the nation dropped in behind him. A 2-0 win in the first match against Poland had the fans in a frenzy. Ahn Jung-hwan came off the bench to tie up the second match against USA, and when 21-year-old Park Ji-sung announced himself to the world with the only goal against Portugal, South Korea had topped their group. The nation's president, Kim Dae-jung, led the celebrations.
Coach Hiddink and players and all the people who participated in the effort. I really appreciate your work. You have made not only 48 million, no, also 70 million Koreans are cheering now on the peninsula.
Hiddink didn't finish there though. In the round of 16 against Italy, Arne headed the golden goal, which cost him his Italian job, but set up a life as a television celebrity back home. Two controversial refereeing decisions helped South Korea beat Spain on penalties in the quarter-final. And although their run came to an end against Germany in the semi-final, Hiddink had cemented his reputation as Mr. Fix-It on football's greatest stage.